May I ask some questions from the gentleman, if he can
Excuse me,
answer?
session is resumed. The Senate President is recognized.
Well, I can very well understand the purpose of this privileged speech. Today, somebody in this chamber was in the headlines for meddling in foreign affairs, and probably this is one way to camouflage it. But just to set the record straight, this is the first time in my whole career as a senator that I was accused of railroading or pressuring people in the Senate. Isn't it a fact, Your Honor, that you appeared in that caucus late? Do you remember what time you arrived in that caucus?
Yes,
When we were all there?
Yes, Mr. President. I arrived there late,
Yes.
but I arrived early enough to capture the essence of what was talked about.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. President.
And we were discussing about the timetable to be undertaken regarding the division of the province of Camarines Sur.
Yes, Mr. President.
Correct?
Correct, Mr. President.
And there was Congressman Villafuerte in the room.
Yes,
correct?
Mr. President. Correct.
And at the time you entered, the one talking was the chairman of the Finance Committee, Senator Franklin Drilon, correct?
Yes, correct, Mr. President.
And do you remember what was being discussed at that time?
The timeline
Correct.
regarding the bill, Mr.
And
President.
that was the reason why Congressman Villafuerte was asked to enter the room because I did not know about the timeline that he was talking about. And you did not know this because you were late.
Yes, Mr. President, but I don't see the relevance of the point you're making right now because I hardly touched on the details of the caucus, Mr. President. Because I believe the details
Well,
of what
I
happened
am
in the
asking
caucus
questions. I don't think you know the rules.
Yes,
I can ask you anything under the sun. I'm going to ask some more questions about you.
yes, Mr.
All right.
President. Then I will answer.
Then just
that,
answer my
that's
question,
irrelevant. Yes,
please.
Mr. President.
If you are a gentleman, and I assume that you are, answer my questions.
Yes, Mr. President.
Now, isn't it that at that point, it was Senator Drilon who was discussing the timeline with Congressman Villafuerte when you entered the room?
Yes, Mr. President.
And did I say anything to pressure you to favor one side or the other?
Precisely, Mr. President. That's not the point. After Senator Drilon spoke, I registered my opposition on the bill, and the Senate President brushed me off.
Well-
Sani, okay na ito,
Well,
Mr. President.
your opposition should have been registered here because we are going to vote here anyway. And that
Yes.
was a caucus. We have already agreed on the timeline. And if you remember, the gentleman from Camarines Sur, Congressman Villafuerte, was pleading with us to just have the hearing conducted because they were running on a very, very tight schedule. And as President of the Senate, it was my duty to hear everybody. And that's why precisely I could not decide the issue because I'm not like that. I have to present it to the members of the Senate in a caucus. And whatever is decided by the caucus, I abide by it, even during impeachment. Were you not present in these caucuses? Is there any instance where I ask you or any one of you to vote according to my wishes?
Mr. President,
I'm asking you a question.
That's irrelevant from this. I can cite several instances.
You know, it's irrelevant because
Yes.
you are telling falsehoods here.
I take exception to that statement.
I
Mr.
am
President.
saying you're telling falsehoods here.
Well,
Because there are records of our proceedings.
Well, Mr. President,
All right.
okay.
Isn't it a fact that you are angry at me because you were asking me for an additional budget for your oversight committee, and I did not allow it?
No, that is a falsehood,
All
Mr.
right.
President.
Okay, but the record is
Which
such
record?
now.
Which record, Mr. President? Which record, Mr. President? Can, if you want, if you are actually daring this representation, Mr. President, for us to take out the list that detailed the actual budget for all the oversight, we can go there, but I'm not inclined to, Mr. President.
You know, Mr. Senator, I was the one who took you out of the rat where you were imprisoned in Camp Crame. I never did this before. I went out of my way to talk to people so that you can get back here in the Senate, and I guaranteed your presence here. But I'm not saying this because
Precisely
I want
you're
you
saying
to
it, Mr.
owe
President.
any favor to me. I'm just putting that on record to show the character of each one of us here. Okay, second, I'm sure that you resented my statement when we were in the cabinet, when you were presenting your supposed position as against the position of the Department of Foreign Affairs, when President Aquino invited me to attend a cabinet meeting on the Scarborough problem, and I told you, who authorized you to make a backroom negotiation with the Chinese for the Scarborough?
Yes, and the
And you were
President...
telling me about treason, remember?
Yes, and
That
the President
Secretary
answered you directly that he authorized me. He told it in your face, Mr. President.
What? Yes, that's correct.
Oh, that's correct.
I
ever-
accepted that because I
precisely.
did not know that you were authorized. But the fact is that I asked you, whom did you talk to in China?
I don't need to report to the Senate President, Mr. President.
You have a duty
I
to
am not,
report what you do
obliged.
as a senator to this chamber. And in fact, you have a duty to notify the office of the Senate President when you leave this country to go abroad.
But I did
And
not.
the only time that I have authorized you is one time. I do not know how many times you have been to China. My understanding is you have been to China talking to the Chinese government for 6 times already.
Yes. And I
And that
did
you
not.
have met them 15 or 16 times. For
Yes.
what reason? We do not know. Are you becoming a fifth columnist of the Chinese in this country?
The Senate President is not privy to the backroom channel talks, and I'm not obliged in any way to
I think you
divulge.
have a duty to inform the people.
I'm not. I have already informed the people, but not the Senate President. I'm not obliged to report to the Senate President, and all this line of questioning is irrelevant again. And should this line of questioning continue, I will have to say that I will refuse to yield anymore the floor.
No, I'm asking you. I'm asking you a question. You went to China. You asked the ambassador of the Philippines there, Madam Brady, for a meeting, and you said, do not take notes during our conversation. And you called the Secretary of Foreign Affairs a traitor. In fact, you told me that he committed treason.
Yes, it was an executive session, and we're not supposed to
And I
divulge
will
what's
read,
happening in
you
the...
want, I will read into
What-
the record your conversation with Brady
But it's
and
supposed
his
to
notes
be,
to the Department of Foreign
it's
Affairs.
supposed to be a confidential matter. It's,
Yes, but there's nothing
so
confidential.
even in the executive meeting, cabinet meeting, in the cabinet meeting in Malacanang, Mr. President, I will refuse to answer if that's
Because
going
you
to be the
cannot
line.
answer the
No,
questions I'm
because
going
it's
to ask
going
you
to
about
be
your
improper
meeting.
in this particular interpellation.
Because you cannot answer
I
the
can
questions
answer.
I'm going to
I
ask
can
you.
answer, but I won't be baited into that trap.
You met,
The point
you met
here
Brady.
is, Mr. President, this is
Mr.
how I
President,
felt.
may I request this gentleman
Mr. President,
to
in
be
that case,
admonished.
I will refuse to yield the floor anymore
Well,
for
in that case, I
any
will read it
interpolation.
read it to the record, the notes that Mrs. Brady or Ambassador Brady wrote about your conversation with her in Beijing on August 12, 2012. You want me to read
point
this?
of order, Mr. President.
You want me to read this?
A point of
What is the
order.
point of order?
The
from
the
Bicol?
Senate President may reveal sensitive information pertaining to foreign relations and national security, and I believe it is out of order in
You
this
do not teach me what
session.
the parliamentary proceedings. I'm not answerable to anybody
There
about
is a
what
point
I
of
say
order,
in this hall.
Mr. President.
The Senate President may proceed.
All right, and I have here the white paper that you've been writing about the Secretary of Foreign Affairs. August 17, 2012. He cannot take the hit.